All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This, of course, is Gwyn. With me is Greetorp, and we are now in Game 3 of the FnaticRaidCall Invitational Finals. This, of course, is versus aLive and Seed, and let's go ahead and jump in, take a look at these two players. In the purple, playing for Fnatic, we do have aLive in the left-hand side of the screen.
Bottom right-hand corner, we got the red Protoss, IMSeed, who is trailing 2-0 right now. Rather, 0-2. And Seed, he needs to make something happen. Because if it's one more game that aLive takes, he will win the tournament. That means Seed will unfortunately just so close to the candy, but just can't grab it away from, you know, the baby that is aLive.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, Live played really well in the first game, and in the second game he threw in a really aggressive cheese, and it turned out great because Seed, of course, he skipped that first Zealot out of his gateway, and on top of that, he went, you know, one gateway expand. He didn't see anything except the one barracks at the normal time out of aLive, so he assumed it was one Rax expand, and, of course, you know what they say, when you assume, we don't even have to say it.
No, we don't. Now, it's a little interesting how Game 1 and Game 2 have actually shaped up. Game 1 and Game 2, it was more of build orders that came into play more than anything else. I would say the players weren't really able to show their skills, you know? Seed was going for a really aggressive play in that first game. He was trying to take so much economy, so much tech off of this quote-unquote fake aggression. Yeah. But aLive punished him for it. Game number 2, Seed does the same build, doesn't go the first Zealot, goes Stalker and then Sentry out of his gateway. Chrono boosts out the Cybernetics core rather than trying to get additional gateways and getting more gateway units. And in that particular game, obviously we saw that cheese that build order countered him. So hopefully we get to see a little bit of a longer game that showcases each of these players' skills at maybe even TVP endgame.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Taking a look so far, it looks like aLive has actually opened up with the barracks gas opening with that gas on 13 supply, so a very standard opening from him. Now, one of the big things to note on this map is that you can actually wall off with just the barracks and the supply depot, which means that the Protoss is not actually going to be able to get in there and scout at all.
Belshire Beach Winter, definitely a map where it's a little bit hard to see exactly what your opponent is doing because of that factor. But look at this, a little proxy factory. And kind of an interesting place to put that factory, Gwyn.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious about that as well. Of course, you know, that's probably not somewhere that Seed is going to check with a probe. And, I mean, he's not even going to really be able to get a probe over there because there are two Marines guarding the bottom of this ramp. And Seed actually looks like he's just going to scout with that first Zealot, or at least poke toward the front with that first Zealot.
We'll see what it can actually see. Potentially might see the factory, but no, he's actually going to back up from there. What do we have in the base of Seed, though? He has opted to go for double gas, and right after that get the second gateway. I should be seeing something else coming out from him pretty soon, though, because that's kind of awkward just to go 2 gate after going 2 gas. You don't normally see that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit curious out of him. aLive does have a SCV in the base, so he is seeing it. There was a little bit of a poke there at the front from aLive. Seed has 2 Marauders out. That concussive shell upgrade is about to finish, so Seed needs to pull back, and indeed, yes, he is pulling back away.
In the meantime, an SCV was able to get in there and see everything that was going on in Seed's base. You can see that Seed has spent the money now on a robotics facility. A very interesting choice to go. Now, there's a lot of different variations that we've seen before. I've seen Immortal Bust, Fast Colossus pushes, even, you know, Twilight Council, or not Twilight Council play,
Dark Temple play?
War Prison play.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. Right now we have, and great force fields pinching off that Marine there, almost getting the Hellion as well, but of course, forced to pull back, so there are 2 Marauders and just 1 Hellion at the front there. And, I mean, aLive shouldn't be able to do too much damage with this. He needs to preserve those sentries, though, because they are light units. And Hellions do quite well against light.
Yes, the Hellions, or at least one of them was able to be cleaned up. The force fields are just trapping those Marauders from doing any damage, but now they're actually focusing down on one of the sentries. The sentry goes down, force field goes up, not really going to do much. That Hellion in the back was cleaned up finally, but that one sucker, and I think aLive needs to back up from here. There's no continued aggression. Look at that. What is he going? A command center, 2 additional barracks behind this. He's looking to just macro straight up, but I think...
And, yeah, he's moving his factory back as well. I liked the amount of confidence that Seed had, though. Despite that attack going on, his first unit out of his robo, it wasn't a immortal, it was an observer.
Yes, and now is a pretty critical point. I mean, if I'm alive, I'm actually scared to hell because I know my opponent has been pretty cost efficient. Yes, he lost 1 sentry, but still, I wasn't able to get that much damage. I've delayed my command center quite a bit. And now they have the ability to do immortal busts, and that's the #1 thing that I'm afraid of.
Yeah, I mean, an immortal bust is so strong, even with these Marauders in this. Of course, the Marauders aren't very good against immortals. It's the Marines you really want, and with that bunker, I mean, the bunker's only got 400 hit points, and if you take a look at an immortal, they actually do infinity damage to armored. So that bunker is going to last all of about 5 seconds to an immortal unless it's being repaired.
Even with repair, it's hard to actually keep up with the DPS of an immortal, especially with infinity damage. That's a lot of damage.
It is. If you take a look at it, it does actually say damage 20 versus armored infinity.
Oh, gosh. The power of Protoss.
And a range 6 on that.
They got buffed. They needed
it.
They needed
it. They used to be, well, maybe they didn't need it, but they needed it for people to actually start using them.
Anyway.
Just like the Infestor, right?
Exactly. Seed is actually going to go and throw on a couple more gateways. Additionally,
put on the Twilight.
A Twilight Council. Yeah, that's probably the more interesting piece in this puzzle. What is he actually up to? I'm not sure. Normally we have at least 1 forge going down, but the Twilight Council definitely gives him mobility, especially against those pesky medevacs.
Oh, blink. Okay.
All right.
That is kind of an interesting choice. I mean, usually, like you said, I mean, we'd see a forge, or maybe since he opened up Robo, we'd see like a support bay, and you can get Colossus. But not at all. It looks like he's saying, well, I just wanted that Robo to get the Observer out and get some Immortals. But here we go. We have a little bit of a sight from the low ground given by those medevacs, and a Bioforce here picking off a pylon. That's going to temporarily supply block Seed, and aLive is now moving around to the front, but Seed has enough here to deal with that. I mean, especially with those 2 Immortals at the front. He was really smart about splitting his forces up correctly that time.
I love this factory, and you can see he's getting a great scout, just trying his best. Oh, look here! Wow, that 1 sentry. So close.
Yeah. The factory will finally go down, and aLive is just gonna, go back over to where he was at that, that cliff there, and potentially just try and drop up into the main. But I love Seed pulling just his Stalkers back to that, because of course the Stalkers can shoot those medevacs, kill off the medevacs, be in a great spot, and keeping the rest of his forces, the Immortals, the Sentries, the real hard-hitting stuff, in case aLive tries to, directly push up that ramp.
Sure. I think I'm a little bit behind you right now, so just give me your time really quick and I can sync up.
Absolutely. We are at 11 minutes and 40 seconds right this instant, 44. Right now, though, aLive taking that 3rd base, so, despite not really doing any damage, direct damage, rather, with this aggression, he has done, damage in the form of containing his opponent and allowing him to take an expansion, but a big load up, 4 medevacs worth straight into the main. He sees the Stalkers there and doesn't even care, and Seed, I mean, he lost a Nexus to this sort of play last time. He has the units here to deal with it now, but, and it looks like aLive pulling right back.
He can blink up, and he's targeting down the medevacs. Oh! 1 goes down. You see the Marines and Marauders that were left behind are going to be just squashed in the face, but no Marines and Marauders remain from that engagement, and that is a big advantage for Seed.
Oh, it's huge.
Look at that supply difference. There is a 20 supply difference between both these players. 107 to 89 right now. And we're going to see Seed actually go out and take map control and possibly get a 3rd. Oh my goodness, Seed. You might get a 3rd safe this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at this aLive throwing down emergency bunkers at his front. 2 of them going down right now as he's desperately trying to macro back up. But you were 100% right. I mean, once cleaning up that attack, and he was, pretty cost-effective in doing so, those Stalkers back in the main helped so much. And now he's still leaving some Stalkers back home to defend against potential counterattack drops, and moving this 2 Immortal force with all those sentries out. And he doesn't even really have to, walk up to the base. He's just turning around, but he has map control back. And that is hugely important. And, ooh, look at that. The first Colossus out. A money scan does see it. And he does not have range for those quite yet. It's on the way.
Yeah, Thermal Lance will be pretty important. You need that AoE damage in order to, you know, be a little bit more cost efficient and be able to defend against a lot of space when you're playing against Terran. That's one of the most important things. You need to defend space efficiently, and you don't want to commit so much supply in all these different areas, especially on a map like Belshire Beach where we have line formation expansions. What I mean by that is you actually expand in a line. There are other maps like Antigua Shipyard where it's triangle formations with your expansions, where once you take an expansion, you kind of defend another. In Antigua, it would be taking your third defense, your natural. In this position, you actually increase the amount of area you have to defend, and that gives way to a very powerful, you know, drop, multi-pronged harass, or, you know, a lot of different things to push you all out of position and then potentially take advantage of you where you're weakest.
Absolutely, and we do see another drop from aLive skirting around the back of the main for Seed. It looks like he sees that there are stalkers there and decides wisely to pull back, doesn't want to lose that medevac with those Marauders and Marines inside, but that ever-present threat of the drop, and like you said, Greetorp, as you expand, you become more and more spread out, so you either have to invest in static defenses at those bases, or you have to leave supply back home to defend. But right now, Seed, you know, that third base, about to finish up for him. The third command center is down for aLive, but he hasn't saturated yet and is basically only using it for mules. I know we almost had an engagement there in the middle. Look at the blink forward, picking off a Viking. That, of course, is super important to do, because those Vikings will make short work of Colossus if the count gets too high.
Both these players taking their third at relatively the same time. The problem is, when you are Terran, you need your third a lot faster than your opponents.
Oh, yeah.
And the main reason is not necessarily for the minerals, rather for the gas. So you don't have the capacity to get all your Vikings, your upgrades, and your ghosts.
And ghosts, yeah.
That's the biggest problem. Whereas Protoss, they can focus on getting just Colossus and upgrades, and then just get Zealots, and that's fine.
Yep.
You know, because Zealots are really good. They have a lot of relevance into the game. Whereas if you don't get those key upgrades and the ghosts and the Vikings, you are in for a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, especially once your opponent has, you know, a Colossus count, you absolutely need the Vikings to defend against that. And, you know, conversely, if your opponent gets out any significant number of High Templar, you have to have those ghosts. And the late game Protoss army includes both of those. So a lot of supply is going to be, you know, tied up in those other units, like you said. And all that's really gas heavy. I mean, your Marine Marauder isn't really gas heavy, but if you want to have Vikings and ghosts out, as well as getting 3-3, you know, your Cloak, your Mobius Reactor, etc., you definitely need those 6 gas. So we do see the gas finishing up at that expansion for aLive. I love this out of aLive. Look at this missile turret at the third base. He's basically said, maybe you're going to mix DTs into your late game composition and harass my expansions. I want to be able to see those. So he's just kind of crossing his T's and dotting his I's.
And I actually like what Seed is doing at this point. He's just staying back. He's been maxed for a while. A lot of players would have just gone in and pushed. But no, Seed is actually getting ready his production. You can see gateways and upgrades, and also the High Templar Archives is on the way out right now. And he's just slowly trading his Zealots. You can see the third base was harassed a little bit up there. But trading up and then replacing it with, you know, those
with the high-tech units.
There you go, 4 High Templars out in the way.
Yeah, I mean, and this is, you know, like you said, it's great play. Basically, what he's doing is he's building up also a bank of minerals, and you see him laying down 4 additional gateways. This way, when he doesn't decide to engage, he actually can lose a bunch of his army and instantly remax on whatever the best composition is to deal with his opponent's army.
Precisely. And
4th base as well for Seed.
That's what you want to do. That's how you play endgame PvT. I mean, make it so that the engagement, whatever it is, instead of fighting 200-200 against 200-200, it's 250 against 200.
Oh, yeah.
And you do that with a lot of Orphans directly after. Here we go, the Vikings. Wow.
Wow.
Colossus.
2 Colossus actually falling to those Vikings at the 20-minute and 23-second mark, like we are right now. But a little bit of engagement starting to go down. Some force fields keeping all those units back. Ghost out in front. Will they get the EMPs they need? Looks like the fight is going down. I did not actually see any EMPs go down on that Protoss army. It looks like maybe just one. But that is a huge Viking count. those Colossus falling so quickly, but storms on a lot of the bio, and these Zealots are doing massive damage right now. Another storm going down.
He wasted all the EMPs on the Colossus, and that's not what you want to have happen when you have so many Vikings. You don't need to do that. Now you can see the Protoss Onslaught is just pushing forward. The factory is in the way, able to give a little bit of time for those Marines and Marauders to work their way out. But wow, what a terrible decision right there. EMPing the Colossus was the worst, and then all of the High Templars are empowered, and they can just go to town on all those Marines and Marauders.
Yeah, and I mean, those storms did so much damage, and really, I feel like aLive overcommitted to Vikings, you know, because of the Colossus count. There were only 3 Colossus in that battle, because, of course, Seed stopped producing them after he had 3. You know, he got his 3 out, and aLive had to make just tons and tons of Vikings to deal with that, and I felt a little bit overmade it, and of course, the Vikings don't do anything against a ground army with Templar.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the big problem. Now you can see the engagement has gone on again. You need to be careful. The High Templar is the ones that he has to be so careful about. That's why he constantly backs up. Ghosts are going to enter the fray, so EMPs are very possible. But in the meantime, the third has been cleaned up. You can see the Orbital Command Center might even go down here. And now he picks up.
It is on fire. And, you know, aLive, I mean, I won't say he's completely out of it yet. I mean, he could get some money EMPs off and turn the tide of the battle. 3-3 bio, which he's about to have, is so strong. But at the same time, Seed up at 182 supply to the 126 of his opponent is looking so strong.
Yeah, there's really no way aLive can get back into this unless he gets like a money nuke or these EMPs and his opponent move commands into him. Because if there's just one engagement, Seed's just going to take it convincingly, and we might actually have it right here in front of the natural. Zealots are behind, but that's a great position.
And actually, this is a sandwich here out of aLive, sandwiching the force. He picks off that Colossus almost immediately. EMPs still have not really gone down, and the Ghosts didn't really get huge EMPs off until the very end there as they were dying, but I don't think it matters. There are Zealots in the main. aLive supply is plummeting down to 60 to the 120 of his opponent, and Seed is remaxing on whatever he feels like.
Exactly, he has 4 bases to kind of boast about. He's able to do whatever he wants, whereas aLive really just committed to scrounging his way up into the supply count. But you can see the 3rd base, the 4th base. Well, the 3rd base is back up, but the 4th base over here in the mid left-hand position is being denied by a group of Zealots. aLive just trying to clear up as much as he can, but this should do it, Mr. Garrett.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely should. I mean, so many Zealots running in. There are some Vikings to take out this lone Colossus. But I mean, Zealot Templar was the repro choice of aLive, or of Seed rather, and with aLive at just 70 supply, you know, yeah, I don't really see a good way for aLive to stay alive, and the GG out of him, finally, after all that. You know, what an insane match there between those two players. Of course, Seed showing the power of remaxing on whatever you want once you were in the lead as a Protoss player in the late game.
One of the biggest problems in that game was aLive not being able to take his 3rd, and I think it came down to the beginnings. Obviously, him getting a delayed natural really affected him, and then he wasn't able to really comfortably push out. And because of that, you're not going to get your 3rd fast enough. You don't get your 5th and 6th gases fast enough, and that, as we were talking about in the game, affects your ghost count. You can see his gas was being thrown all over the place to whatever his opponent was going, and that whole time you saw a big advantage in not only the army composition but the upgrades in favor of Protoss.
Absolutely. And guys, we'll be right back with the next game. Of course, this is the FnaticRaidCall Invitational number 2. That was game 3, and Seed bringing it back. It is now 2-1. So Seed keeping himself from elimination by the skin of his teeth.